One of the most common questions that comes up when it comes to minimum standards is around window locks or door locks. So today I'm going to go through the understanding of locks and specifically with rental minimum standards, but also within the Residential Tenancies Act. So we can either come up here and we can type in window locks, which is it'll bring up a number of different points. So we've got frequently asked questions, number 15, understanding and interpreting the requirements for locks and security doors, and which is over here. So I'm just going to come over and I'm going to bring this section up. And what I've done is I've also got on my second screen, I'll bring this across in a second. There's a whole range of different links that are inside of here. I think there might be about 13 or 14 different links, and I've got each of the screens open as we go through. So as we're working our way through this card, this is applicable to everyone within the office. So from whether it's including sales as well. More importantly, when we're looking at bringing the business on, so brand new business, so BDMs, new management, and also leasing, anyone doing routine inspections, and of course property managers, but then whoever's preparing the documentation. So specifically here, we're talking about locks in general, but window locks fall within that. The training video is going to go inside of here. The points that I've pulled out from a learning point of view, and particularly from a staff training point of view, let's just have a look at section 30D. Now what I might do is I might bring this whole document across here now and use this card inside of here. So it's exactly the same card. It'll just need to refresh for a second. And if we have a look at section 30D, there it is there. Okay, so section 30D, information that a rental provider must disclose before entering a rental agreement. So we've got the reference down to here. So the rental provider is required to inform the renter if the property doesn't meet the minimum standards. Window locks and door locks actually comply through to that one. The next one is the condition reports. So section 35, so 30D, and now we've got 35. If we've got the condition report must incorporate the fact that the property complies with the minimum standards, and if the window locks and door locks are there, the condition that they're in, and probably also take some photographs as well. So if the property doesn't comply with minimum standards, it needs to be noted on the condition report. But if you go back through the Residential Tenancies Regulation and have a look at what's included in the condition report, window locks and door locks are certainly there. The next one we've got along here is 65A. I forgot with 30D, the penalty units is 300 penalty units if it's in breach. So if the disclosure statement didn't identify that the property didn't meet the minimum standards, or didn't identify something that's wrong with the disclosure of the property, if it didn't identify that and you send off a disclosure statement through to the renter, the fine is 300 penalty units, which in 2022 is equivalent to about $54,500. Section 55, so occupation of a rented premises that do not comply with minimum standards. Have a look through this one, and this effectively says that if the rented premises do not comply with the minimum standards on or before the day the renter takes possession, the renter may request that the rental provider conduct urgent repairs to be carried out to make sure that it complies. Now, as we know, there's $2,500 applicable for the urgent repairs. If the tenant can't afford to do the urgent repairs themselves, they can come back to you as the agent and also the rental provider and say, I want this fixed as part of the urgent repairs. If the property doesn't meet compliance, the tenant can either apply to VCAT, make sure that it's done, and if they do apply to VCAT, what VCAT can order is that the rent be paid specifically into a special fund until the locks are completed. Okay, so we've got all the definitions inside of here of what the locks, what's required. So what's a window lock, door lock, what it needs to be, who needs to get copies of the keys, and so forth. So we've got locks as section 70. Now we come across here to the schedule. Okay, so this is in the Residential Tenancies Regulations. Now the schedule. So we come back down to here. I think it's item, by memory, is item 23. Okay, locks. Rental provider must ensure the premises has locks to secure all windows capable of having a lock. has deadlocks. Now, a deadlock is a latch with at least one cylinder for external doors that are able to be secured with a functioning deadlock, and it meets the minimum standards. Now, if it doesn't meet the minimum standards, therefore it needs to be disclosed, and also when you're going to remediate that, when will that be fixed? External doors, which are only to be secure with a functioning deadlock, must be fitted with a locking device, which is operated by a key from outside, maybe a lock from the inside. So now we need to know that. So that's Schedule 1. The rental minimum standards, here we've got locks. All external doors of the rented premises which are not able to be secured with the functioning deadlocks other than screens operated, and So that's the provision for locks. So clause 1, and then I believe it's 11, which is windows. All external windows in the rented premises that are capable of opening. So if the window's open, it must be able to be set in a closed or open position. So what you can't do is just have a window which opens and doesn't, and sort of just flows to and fro. It needs to have a latch. It needs to be able to be secured, and it needs to be able to stop it from closing and from slamming shut and so forth. All external windows, so really important, there's not all windows are external. So all external windows in the rented premises which are capable of opening must have a functioning latch to secure the windows against the external entry. So now a window lock or a bolt will meet the minimum standards. Now this is really important with regards to the window locks. Okay, information, this is Regulation 16, what you need to disclose, again, from an agency's point of view and an owner's point of view. Now, if the tenant moves into the property, the renter moves into the property, and the property does not comply, and they identify that, they can ask you to organise urgent repairs. If you don't, then they can go ahead, as long as they've got the funds to do so, they can go ahead and coordinate the urgent repairs up to $2,500 and then seek that to be repaid back through from the landlord. Here's the information. Now all these links are sitting inside of this card, so there's a lot of information around the particular locks. External doors and windows in a rental property must be able to be locked and secured. Each renter is named, so all this stuff is inside of here. Explanation around the window locks, so we've got that. And now we've got minimum standards, what the definition, we've got locks inside of there. And again, coming back down to here, windows. All external windows in a rental property that can be opened must be lockable. So not just latched. So they can't just have a snib, it needs to be lockable. If it can be opened, it needs to have a lock on that. Now generally that's a lock with a key and at least one cylinder. They must also be able to be left open or closed, so that is an arm on the window. If the window can't have a lock fitted, it must have a functioning latch to keep it closed. Now sometimes you can't penetrate the seal of the window, and or the heritage issues as well. So sometimes that can happen, but you need to be able to actually lock it. So have it locked in not just have it ajar and someone walk along like an external person ground level and just open it up and jump in. So it needs to be lockable, or the latch needs to be fixed. Okay, repairs in rental properties, urgent repairs coming inside of here. And the disclosure statement, what we need to disclose when before a renter is offered the property. Now, let's just come through to this card. So I've got all of the links that are sitting inside of here, the Consumer Affairs website. I've just gone through those with you, and now what we've got inside of here. So Schedule 4, this is the locks. All external entry doors to the rented premises which are not able to be secured with a functioning deadlock, other than any screen door, must have at least a fitted locking device. Windows, all external windows in the rented premises that are capable of opening must be able to be set in a closed position or an open position. I'll just get rid of that. All external windows in the rented premises which are capable of opening must have a functioning latch to secure the windows against external entry. So it's really important. It's either lockable or the latch. Here's the regulations. So we've got some more information inside of here. Section 70, and there's an explanation inside of there. Now this is just copied straight out of the Act. When a rental provider fails to repair the property, if a rental provider does not respond to a request for an urgent repair, the renter may apply to VCAT for an order requiring the renter to carry out those repairs. Alternatively, the renter can spend up to the $2,500. If the urgent repairs has been made, the rental provider can apply to VCAT to have the rent paid into a special account. When a dead latch is not required for an external door, this is that there are some instances where you don't need to have or you can't put the dead latch. A door can't be secured with a dead latch. There's a screen door, so if you've got the screen door as the frame, that's the external door, has its own dead latch, so the internal door doesn't necessarily need that. So it's one locking device. It's on the outer side. A different type of lock or device is required under another act. The door isn't directly accessible. Sometimes the external door might be into a carport, which is then garaged off, so you can get in from the back, but you can't. That's got a roller door at the front. The door is public into common area and so forth. All external doors that can't be secured with a functioning dead latch must at least be fitted with a locking device that's operated from a key from the outside, may be unlocked from the inside with or without a key. The rental provider must make sure all external windows of the rental property that can be opened have a working lock. If there are no locks, the window must have a latch to secure against external entry. This is what the agency's expectation would be. So all external doors and windows in the rental property must be able to be locked, must be open latched. We've done that. If the property doesn't comply with the rental minimum standards, then the tenant can apply for urgent repairs. Agent must ensure that it complies with all 14 of the minimum standards. The agent must have documented evidence that the property complies. So here, the rental minimum standards form completed correctly and accurately signed and is on file. The disclosure statement must be completed, accurate and on file, and that you've got evidence that you've sent that through to a renter. The agency or agent must carry out their own inspection of the property to ensure that any item that's easily identifiable to the naked eye is identified and action taken. Condition report needs to be noted on the condition report. Before taking on any listing, you want to make sure that you have done a walkthrough and the property complies. So new business, I've got here that the agent that's bringing on the new business is 100% responsible to make sure that the property complies. Don't bring on any new business that does not comply. It's an existing management. Well, then it's the responsibility of the property manager to make sure that the property complies with the minimum standards and that you've got it on record. So the owner is the one that's signing off on it, but you would, as an agent or agency, do the inspections. Many of the times, the owner, particularly for overseas owners, have never been inside the property. So an agency would never sign the minimum standards, the rental minimum standards, but certainly would be able to do the inspections and do those when you're doing the periodics. Even though it's the owner's responsibility to fill in the form, the agency has an obligation to ensure the property complies. If the owner has ticked yes that the property complies, but you know that it doesn't, then you need to make sure you're not using that document. So if you're aware that the property is not complying, you need to make sure you inform the owner and get the right document. The agency does not have a satisfactory excuse to simply say the rental provider provided the document and that it complies. So if they've provided it and you know that it doesn't comply, you can't just use that. If the property does not comply with any of the 14 minimum standards, then the property is deemed to be non-compliant. And again, Section 65 would apply, which is the $54,500 penalty. If the property is non-compliant, it must be clearly stated on the rental applications to all rental applicants and clearly stated on the disclosure statement. If the property is non-compliant, then it's important that you actually make a note of that in the special conditions of the rental agreement, that you would notify what the breach is, what the issue is, what needs to be repaired, when it's going to be repaired, who's going to do it, and what the time frame is. And it's not simply acceptable to write inside the rental agreement or a condition report that it'll be fixed as soon as practicable. So there are the two fines, Section 30D and 65A. Hopefully this has helped you understand, and with all the resources there, understand a little bit more around the requirements for locks for both windows and doors when it comes to rental minimum standards. Thanks for that. Hope that helped.